This is my husband Ginger. He's the manager of our school.
My name is Chumjur. I am from Tibet, Ogha. Ngatu work karmotang napcho karmon zaka nyamdre jinga so riwayots.
So he hopes to make a strong connection between the artists of the local Tibetan world and the artists in the West.
Ngatu work karmon den zaka tangsang zamlang ga jirtja zaka gomba potam maker.
So he thinks that the Tibetan traditional art hasn't really achieved a foothold in the art of the rest of the world.
Ngatu napcho karmotang work karmon zaka nyamdre naraga maungana zaka zamlang ga jirtja kjan zaka gomba poji ngatu shigjin ngatu riwayot ngatu malamiyot.
So it's his hope and his prayer, and he's hoping to put a lot of effort into making a strong connection between the Western art and the Tibetan art, and in that way creating a platform for Tibetan art to reach the rest of the world. We're going to the mountains with the students to draw today. To give a brief introduction of our small art school, we were started originally in 2010 with Chijamso was the very first student who came, and kind of the motivation behind starting this whole project was to preserve some of the traditions and the ethics belonging to the traditions of the Tanka art community dating back hundreds of years, and which have been kind of lost recently due to the development and the support which has resulted in a lot of financial improvement, which as a result has caused many of the local artists to lose interest in losing some of the longer time-consuming work that would go behind a tanka. Traditionally, a novice or apprentice artist back in the olden days would be an apprentice for a minimum of 10 years before he could even think of calling himself an artist. For the first 4 years, he wouldn't even touch a paintbrush. He would be learning the proportions and the measurements behind the tanka painting, which is actually probably the foundation, the basis of the art in itself. Nowadays, of course, there are things like scanners and printers and computers, which means that you can print out and trace and make them bigger, make them smaller. You don't actually need to spend all the time, traditionally, in learning all the measurements and memorizing everything. So that's sort of an aspect of the art which has been lost and is dying out very quickly. It was said recently that out of, say, 5,000 artists, maybe 20 still know the old traditional method of creating the proportions. So this is something we're hoping to gain back by creating a small pool of artists which are ethically motivated, who are in it not just for money, but in it for kind of the culture and promoting their own kind of history of art. So that's one of the primary reasons we started the school. And one of the main rules of our school is that you're not allowed to trace anything that you haven't drawn yourself, which means that they have to do the whole process of learning the measurements. So everything that our artists create has been drawn right from the beginning by themselves. It's not copied from anybody else's artwork. The other thing is that many of the artists, because of the sort of environment in which finances are more important than the knowledge behind the art, is that many of the local kids aren't sent to school to learn any of the sort of history or language, which means you have a generation of young artists who are illiterate. As a result, many of the current tankas have mistakes in them. So the other thing that we insist on in our group is that the students have an idea of what the meaning is behind what they paint. They have to be able to explain whatever is they're painting to whoever is asking them questions. So that's the two main rules: is first, no copying, and second, you have to know the meaning. So we've been going for almost 5 years, and the first student will graduate this October. We take 2 students a year, and you'll meet some of the students later on. At the end of 5 years, when they graduate, then they'll have a knowledge of the basics of both Tibetan art as well as Western art. My name is Tenzin Joma. I'm originally from Canada. Left home in '92 and travelled to about 40 different countries in search of different styles of art. Arrived in India in 1997 and learned the Tibetan tanka painting there for several years, and have been now living in the Tibetan area for about 7 years. We started the school 5 years ago, which is the fulfillment of many years of dreams. I've always wanted my own art school, and dreams have become a reality, and you've kind of seen what the dream has become. We prepare all our canvases using the traditional methods. First we start with a cotton or linen cloth. Then the canvas is primed using a mix of resin and chalk, and smoothed out using river stones. And the process can take up to a day depending on the weather, and each side needs to be polished probably 4 or 5 times depending on the type and the size of canvas. Traditionally, paint was used made from stones, ground stones or clay, natural pigments, and here you can see the process of the grinding of the colors. The group of students we have right now come from various areas from the Tibetan plateau, none of whom actually are from Labrang itself, but they're from poorer areas, mostly in Qinghai, and many of them come from poorer families in areas where there's not an ongoing art tradition, places where it's difficult or impossible to find an art teacher, and as soon as they've joined our program, they basically become one of our kids for the 5 years. And during that time then, they study both the traditional Tibetan art, as you saw earlier with the grinding of the paints, the preparing of the canvas, and all the step-by-step traditions that would have been going on for hundreds of years, as well as learning the modern art, such as acrylic painting, drawing with pencil, colored pencils, pastels. We do realistic art, we do art based from photographs, as well as art based from life. We have gone to draw in the monastery several times. So when they graduate at the end of the 5 years, they'll then have a series of skills, that illustrations for a book, and currently we're working on sort of a tourist map of the Labrang area, as you can see from what the students are working on here. This is Chijemso. He's our very first student graduating this year, and he's from an area called Khunen, which is a few hours from Labrang.
I'm class 4. My name is Kazan Caidan. I'm from Xionghua.
My name is Yundun. I'm from Shanghai. I'm class 3.
My name is Ogha. I'm from Golo. I'm class 3.
This is Sherab Zombo. He's from Tsolo, and this is his 2nd year.
My name is Kala. I'm from Zorma. I'm in class 2.
Kula's room actually used to be a coal storage, which we converted to a small room because we only have one girl, so the wallpaper covers what used to be coal-covered walls.
My name is Njingme. I'm from Tibetan Tsorngum Tsoshang Kla. I'm class 1.
Where have you go? Where have you go? Where have you say?